With me I have Amr Moussa, a presidential candidate in Egypt's recent elections and also the former head of the Arab League. So thank you very much for joining us here on RT. Many people were surprised that you did not make it through to the second round of the recent presidential elections. Why do you think you did not do as well as expected?
I was among those who were astonished that I didn't make it. But this is democracy. The results are not guaranteed. They are never guaranteed. But I am glad that the democratic process has really started. The elections were observed by international Arab and the civil society organizations. In Egypt. I have my own reasons, I understand what happened, how things were managed in the last few days. But my concern is not this. My concern is that the democratic process should not be derailed, especially at this stage where we are just starting. So I am glad that things went that way. It would have been much better had I been in the race, the second round, but it is immaterial compared to the process itself and the preservation of the initiative towards democracy.
The revolution failed. The revolution, in your words, that was supposed to achieve democracy. Why do you think it was unable to sustain itself?
Because of so many mistakes. And the mistakes were committed by all parties to the Egyptian scene. You cannot accuse one party of monopolizing the mistakes. The revolution, the Egyptian revolution, was subjected to hijacking from the very first minute. But the oneness of the goal, which is to put an end to the former regime, brought everybody together. It was not really observed, noticed, understood that there are forces other than the real forces of revolution. Once the regime came to its end and the former president decided to abdicate, differences started, and many forces from the right, especially the right, attempted to speak on behalf of the revolution and to hijack it. And that was seen in the many organizations and unions and parties that claimed, each one of them claimed to represent the revolution. And they were talking past each other. Different languages, political languages.
Could the revolution have worked? What was needed for it to achieve its goals?
I believe one party, one head of it, and clear goals. In order to be able to compete and get into the parliament and compete and get into the government, but the several voices, the different logics, the different emphasis, and the attempts to hijack it, to the effect that they called the parliament, elected parliament, the parliament of the revolution. So, and that was a bit strange. The revolution was not a religious one. So, the misconception, the misunderstanding, the misrepresentation of things. However, I would want you to know that regardless of the absence or the presence of the revolution, actual presence, the spirit of the revolution is still there. The feeling that this is a different time and different era and different philosophy and different goals, this spirit is still there. So I do not think that the Egyptian revolution was defeated, but it was definitely subjected to a lot of pressure, efforts to derail the revolution, efforts to finish off the revolution, but its spirit and the general feeling that we have already entered a different era is still there.
What does a Morsi win mean for Egypt? Are you concerned that Egypt will become a more Islamist state?
No, I believe there will be a lot of disagreement on that point. Egypt is not ready. to be anything but a civil state. It means that the success or failure of President Morsi is by what they would do to deal with the problems of Egypt, rather than get into political talk about the philosophy of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Are you concerned by the growing Islamist fundamentalism in the region?
No, why should I be concerned? But the point is that this is a religion, not politics. Politics is something else. The government has to be a civil government. This is what I believe in. We live in the 21st century. We have problems in our country, in our region. We have to deal with them with all the ways and means that we see fit to deal with that. Religion is something else. We need a civil state. We need a modern constitution. And Egypt had always had a modern constitution, starting 1923 constitution. Separation of authorities, the independence of the judicial power, the presidential or parliamentary regime, whatever but a government that has the constitution as its sole reference, nothing else, only the constitution. The judiciary and the independence of judiciary is so important and vital. Human rights and fundamental freedoms, rights of women, all those principles should be enshrined, in addition to the non-discrimination among citizens, in addition to the basic nature of religion, that it has its role, but its role as defined in the Constitution, nothing more.
But the military has made itself responsible for writing the new constitution. Are you confident that the military will be able to give the people a constitution that it accepts?
It's not the military that's going to write the constitution. It's a constituent assembly that will have to write it. Constituent assembly with the representation by all factions of our society. Nobody expects the military to write the constitution. The amendments or the constitutional declaration or the amendments thereto are all stopgap arrangements. It is the constitution that will rule Egypt.
But the military will choose the people who will write this constitution.
Well, until now we have a committee already in place, a constituent assembly, but it has some controversy around it. So we'll see what kind of proposals the Supreme Council will come up with. But many of us have their own opinions about it. So it won't be that the military will just appoint. They will select, they will consult. That's what I expect.
You were head of the Arab League for a decade. How then do you explain the Arab League's stance on Syria, which has surprised many?
Look, the situation in Syria is different than the situation in Libya. And the Arab League played an important role in Libya in order to pave the way for change and save civilians. It was supported by almost everybody. In Syria, it is different because of the strategic situation of Syria, and that none of the countries surrounding Syria had a revolution. Libya had Egypt and Tunisia to the east and west, both in a state of revolution. So the neighborhood was already ready to support the revolution in Libya. As for Syria, many countries around it are really concerned that things would get out of hand. But it is the spirit of change. This is the era of change. And change is the name of the game. Forget about the Western expression, Arab Spring, or any other expression of that kind. It is the spirit of change. Change is the name of the game. And change is a historical development. It is not just a sporadic thing. So it is a matter of time, in my opinion, that change will take place in Syria, especially after the bloodshed that happened there. You cannot get back to square one. It's very difficult to get back to square one to be accepted. Big powers differed on how to deal with Syria. Some put the blame on Russia, but I believe this is like a hanger. There is no other plan. There is no plan. There is no Western plan for Syria. There is a lot of hesitation, a lot of disharmony among big powers about what to do with Syria. But the natural development of things will play its role. That what happened cannot reach the point of going back to square one that easy. And don't forget that this is the time for change. And change is the name of the game. And Syria is no exception.
Amr Moussa, thank you very much for joining us here on RT.
Thank you.